Lorene Lee. I'm going to be your instructor for this course. We're starting in section 1.1 and we're going to introduce some vocabulary to start with. So the first thing that we want to define is data. Data is going to be a collection of facts used for reference or analysis of some sort. Data can be numbers. Often it is numbers, but it does not have to be. We could have a collection of data about people's hair color or eye color. It doesn't have to be numerical. We'll talk about different categorizations of that later. Statistics. Statistics is the science of collecting, organizing, analyzing, and interpreting the data. So something you need to know about me, I am not a good speller. I'm going to do my very best, but with a lot of writing in a class like this, I'm bound to misspell some words, so I'm sorry to you English folks out there. That's going to be what it is. So what we're going to do in this class is we're going to collect information, collect data, collect different facts from different situations. We're going to learn how to collect it well, how to organize it, how to analyze it, and then how to interpret it. That's the goal of this course. So let's talk first about what a population is. A population represents all the possible outcomes in a situation. So the key word here is all. For example, if we want to take a political poll in the United States, the population would be all of the United States. If we want to know what the average height of an Allen Hancock student is, the population would be Allen Hancock students. It's the whole group that we're interested in looking at. A sample is a part of the population. So if you want to think of it as a Venn diagram, we can draw a large circle and call that our population. This is all of the elements that we're interested in. And then we can draw a small circle inside it, and this is a sample. So a sample is a little part of the population. So let's give an example at this point. Let's say we want to know the height of Allen Hancock students. It may not be time effective to go through the entire college and measure every single student at Allen Hancock. So what we do, instead of measuring the height of every student, we take a smaller group of students called a sample, and we measure their height, and we say, well, that represents the population. Now, there's lots of different samples. I can take a lot of different, if you go back to the Venn diagram, we can have lots of these circles in here. There's lots of different samples, and some of them might even overlap, like maybe one sample has some people that are in common with a different sample. How you choose your sample dictates how good of a representation it is for the population. So, for example, if we want to know the average height of an Allen Hancock student, and I'm going to go take a sample of, let's say, 15 people, and I walk into the gym during basketball practice, and I survey the basketball team, that the average height of the basketball team is going to be higher than most other students, because typically they would be taller. So that would be what we call a bias sample. It's not a good representation of a population because I'm in an environment where what I want to measure might be inflated. I could also walk into the cafeteria and I could take a sample of 20 people there, and that might be more representative. I could survey a classroom, I could survey a statistics class. There's a lot of different ways to pick a sample, and some of them are good and some of them are not good. So we're going to talk about the correct ways to choose samples later, but that's the idea. In your homework, you're going to have a lot of problems that say, like, I would like to know what the average life of a dishwasher is. So I take a sample of 10 dishwashers. The population is going to be all the dishwashers. Again, that key word here, all. A sample is going to be the 10 that I'm looking at as a representation of the population. All right, the next two words that we want to talk about are statistic and parameter. I'm going to start with parameter. Parameter is a number that describes a population. Now, this could be any number. In our example, a parameter might be the actual average height of a Allen Hancock student. It's any descriptor of an entire population. And the way that you remember it is that parameter starts with a P and population starts with a P. So parameters are numbers that go describe the population. It could be a standard deviation, it could be a mean, it could be a median, it could be any number. It doesn't have to be an average. A statistic is a number that describes a sample. So again, in your memory mechanism, sample starts with S, statistics starts with an S, so they go together. Now, statistic is different than statistics. Statistics is the science of the study of all of this stuff. A statistic is a descriptor of a sample. So let's do one big example. And let's say we want to know how many people at Allen Hancock College own a dog. So we want to know, like, do 50% of the people own a dog? Do 20% own a dog? So we don't want to ask the whole school. So we go into the cafeteria and we're going to survey 30 people in the cafeteria. And we find that 22% of those people own a dog. Now, later, I want to know actually what's the real number. So I go and I survey every single person at Allen Hancock College, say, do you have a dog? And I find that actually 27% of Allen Hancock students own a dog. All right, let's label some things with vocab words. So the first thing is, what's the population? Hopefully you're thinking to yourself, population, all Allen Hancock students. Okay, because that has to do with our main question. How many people at Allen Hancock? And so the population is all of whoever's we're interested in. What's the sample? The sample is these 30 people. It's the small group out of the population that we poll. This 22%, this is a number, and it describes the sample that we took. So this is called a statistic. And the 27% describes the population, the actual percentage of our population who own a dog. And so this is called a parameter. So your homework is just going to ask you present different situations, and it's going to ask you to identify vocab words within those situations. Try those problems, and I will see you next video for section 1-2.